The responder tracking webinar is going to go over how you can enable responder tracking for your events, how individual responders can enable or disable responder tracking on their mobile devices, and how you can view these responder tracking points and paths in your event space to build out that common operating picture. So I wanted to start off with some responder tracking basics. Your CBRN Responder mobile application is where these responder tracking points are collected. So there's no way to collect responder tracking on the website. It's only on the CBRN Responder mobile app. So from the app, these points are then uploaded to the website for then other responders on the event to see. Responder tracking can be enabled for an event. So this can be during event creation or if you're going back and editing that. That being said, it is up to each individual user if they want to turn tracking on their device. There are no rogue responder tracking points. Each point is associated with an individual event. So again, you must have selected an event on the mobile app for your tracking to be recorded. And then as I mentioned, you do have the ability to disable or enable tracking on your device at any time. The responder tracking is going to be based off of your device's GPS and location services. So to take a look at this, you'll go into your respective device's settings. This is an example of an iOS device. You'll find that application, so CBRN Responder. There I'll see what I've allowed CBRN Responder to currently have access to, and I can choose to customize the location. So a few frequently asked questions that we get as far as responder tracking. First, how is my location being determined? So it is determined by your mobile device's GPS, like I said, so that's why you actually have to go into your mobile device settings, make sure that you have that turned on if you would like your location to be shared, and vice versa. Do not share your GPS with CBRN Responder if you do not want your location to be shared. Do I have control over when I want to share my location? The answer is yes, you do have control at all times. If you turn off the location services, we will not receive your location. There's no overriding we can do to figure out where your location currently is. I also mentioned that responder tracking can be enabled for an event. That being said, that does not mean your event manager or others on the event can force you to turn your location on. So it's entirely up to you when and where and if you even want to share your location. And finally, who has access to view my location? So those responder tracking points are specific to a single event. So users that have access to the event will be able to view these tracking paths and points. So to start off with getting responder tracking enabled, it begins at the event level. So this can be during the event creation process or by editing the event details at a later time. So during event creation, there's going to be an event settings section where there's a few different checkboxes of features. The track responders field is going to be the first one. We do have this checked by default, so you can always uncheck it if you would like. If you click the question mark icon and want some more information, we give you that responders using the mobile application will be tracked, so their movement is shown on the event map if they choose to allow the tracking. If you have an existing event, or maybe you already created an event and originally didn't want tracking, but now you do, you can always go back and update this. So under the event space, you'll see a details page. If you select that, you'll scroll down to see a settings section. And from here, you can select manage and adjust that track responders field. So just like you can choose to enable it, you can also choose to disable it at any point. So as far as getting it set up for your event, it's a pretty quick one-step. There are a few different ways on the CBRN Responder mobile app that you can have it enabled. And again, this is going to be just for your specific user on this specific device. So once you are logged on to the mobile app and you're locating the event, so you'll search for and then select into that event that you're going to be responding to and working with. The first time you open any event in the app, you're brought to the configuration page. So this page just gives you different set options that you can customize. So there will be a responder tracking section, again, if the event has it enabled. And if you tap that open, you'll see a responder tracking enabled field that you can choose to disable or enable by toggling on. To save the changes, make sure you tap the check mark icon in the top right corner. And let's say you originally had it disabled, you can always go back to the configuration page for that event and adjust your settings. So you're always able to choose whether or not you want to have it on or off. There is another location where you're able to customize this, and that is on the mobile app accuracy and tracking bar. For those of you familiar with the CBRNResponder app, at the bottom of every screen, you're always going to see this dark gray tracking bar that has accuracy and the tracking on icon. So at any point, again, you'll see this at all times, you'll see a gear icon that when selected, it'll ask if you want to enable tracking if it's off. And then on the other hand, if your tracking's on, and let's say it's the end of your shift, you want to turn it off, you can just tap that gear icon, click disable tracking, and your tracking will be off. You're also going to see an accuracy value next to the tracking, along with a colored dot, and this is going to be determined based on your device's GPS location. So again, not determined through the CBRNResponder app, it's based on your device's GPS. The colored circle that you see is going to be based on your accuracy range. So if you see a green dot, this means your accuracy is 30 meters or less. If it's an orange dot, it's going to be greater than 30 meters. And if you don't see accuracy at all, this means that your location services have been turned off. So because we're not getting your location, we're not able to report your accuracy as well. So a few cases that may come up here, if data that you recorded was not accurately reflected of where you actually were when you took the reading, it's going to be your responsibility to make sure that your location accuracy reflects where you actually were. So here we have on all our data point forms a location field where you'll see the reported coordinates, and then it'll give you the date and time of where that location's reporting from. So if you were moving around to different locations, you want to make sure and check that your device has your most recently reported location and timestamp. If you see that your location accuracy is higher than you would like, so in this example here, it's 91 meters, which isn't necessarily the greatest when you're trying to be as accurate as possible. So this means that your device's GPS is not super precise at this time. So your location of where your data point was recorded may be slightly off. So again, if this is too outdated or too inaccurate for your liking, you are able to change your location entry mode to enter in the exact address, the lat-long coordinates, or the select from map option. So you'll click into that location field, and then you'll see a location mode field. And then from there, when you open that, you'll see the different location mode options that you can get. So you can refine your location as much as you would like or need to avoid having that poor accuracy. Also, I wanted to note that during data collection, we do have a location lock feature. So a use case of this is if you're entering a hot zone and you need to get a reading, you can quickly lock your location and then get to a safer area and complete the rest of the form. If your location is locked, this is not going to affect responder tracking, so you will still have your location for responder tracking reported as you currently were moving, and that itself will not be locked. We also have the ability for you to check your responder tracking points that are being uploaded. So on the mobile app, on your profile, you should see a diagnostics button. If you open that up, you'll see a section for responder tracking, and this gives you the upload queue of those responder tracking points. So you can see we have a limit of 14,400 that can be sitting in the upload queue at one time. That is a lot of data points for those tracking, so I doubt anybody will get to that, but once the responder tracking point is uploaded, it will no longer be sitting there in the queue. So as long as you have good cell service and cell signal, it should upload simultaneously. That being said, if you are offline or don't have good service, they will be in the upload queue and will still collect your location. And then once you're back on the internet, then the points will upload. So now that we went over how you can enable those and use responder tracking on the mobile application, from the event side on the website, there are a few different ways that you're able to see the responder tracking points. So the first being in a tabular view. So under the data dropdown, you should see a responder tracking field. And when you navigate to this page, you will see a list of all responder tracking points from all personnel on that event. So this can get to be a lot if you have 40 responders and they all had responder tracking turned on. You may have a lot of points here. So you may want to apply some filters. That way you can sort of hone in on what's exactly you're looking for. So you can adjust the personnel, the field team, the recorded date and time to filter down that list. With the responder tracking points, you can also choose to export them in a CSV, KML, or shapefile. When you export this, it will display it for the KML and shapefile in a continuous path. So it's more of a visual image of that responder tracking. If you wanted to view a specific point, you can use the magnifying glass icon and you'll see that specific responder tracking point and the details associated with it. So I can see, again, who collected it, when, the specific location coordinates, some other location information. So I'm able to see exactly where an individual was at this time. So you are able to see all of the responder tracking points, again, in this tabular view. But if you want to see them more visually and really get that full common operating picture, it's best to view that in the event map. So you'll open up the map from the left-hand side navigation menu, and you'll be brought to the event map. So this is where you can see the responder tracking, see the data collected, any GIS files, all of the information in that singular place. So when you first get to the map, you want to check that you have the responder tracking layer turned on. So you can open up the layers menu and toggle that on. I will note by default, responder tracking is not displayed on the map. So you will have to go in there most of the times and toggle that on. Once you close the layers menu and open up the responder tracking menu, that's where you're going to see all the different responder tracking features and the different responders that have a tracking path on this specific event. If you are looking to filter by a specific responder, field team, or organization, you can use the search bar. For each responder, you are going to see some specific information. So you'll see the start and end date of the tracking paths for the event. You'll see the total distance of the paths that they have traveled in kilometers, the number of individual tracking paths, the total number of locations. So this is going to be those individual tracking points, if they were associated with a field team, and then the color of the tracking path for this user on the map. For each responder that has responder tracking turned on, you can choose to view their latest location. So here I can see that blue icon that has a little figurehead. When I select that, that's the most recently reported location for this individual user. I can get the date and the time, as well as the specific coordinates and some contacts information. You'll also see some quick links where you can view additional paths for the user, view any additional details about that location, and directly chat with the user and or the field team that they're on. I mentioned that each responder has a specific color that their tracking paths are going to be. You can always edit this colored field. Once you select the edit icon, you will see the responder path color, and it'll be a drop-down with a few dozen color options. So here I updated it to navy. And once I save that, I can see that the color has been updated, and therefore the tracking paths when displayed will now be a navy color. You have the option to enable or disable tracking paths in bulk. So for disabling all paths or enabling all paths, or you can choose to focus on a specific individual and enable or disable their paths. So here's an example of enabling and disabling different tracking paths. You can see them appear on the map. So I mentioned that there are a number of paths that you can have for each responder. So by default, that list of the different responders, we only show the most recent path for that responder. If you want to see all of the paths that they've taken, you'll click that bulleted list icon, and this is where you'll see the different paths that they have taken. So a path is broken down into any gap in time where data was collected. So the time is 60 minutes. So if you had your responder tracking turned on your device, you then turned it off, took a long lunch, maybe an hour and a half. If you turned the location back on, that would then start a new path because there were 60 minutes or more of inactivity with that tracking. For each specific shift or path, you'll see the total distance. You'll see the number of tracking points just in the shift as well, the start and end date, and then any field team that the responder is on. You can choose to view multiple shifts for a specific user. So here I have an example of 2 different shifts being displayed. That being said, depending on how close they may be, you may have to zoom out substantially and it may be somewhat hard to see. So what you can do with the individual paths is use the navigation location icon, and it'll take you directly to where that path is. So you can have a very quick look into where that path was, as opposed to having to search and zoom in on the map on your own. If you do choose to display different paths, you'll then see a message for that specific user that you have customized the paths that are displaying. So again, you can click that bulleted list icon to enable or disable those paths, but we want to alert the user that there has been some adjustments made as far as what you're viewing. So if you are viewing those paths, you can always select back to all responders, and this will take you back to the list where you can see all personnel that have responder tracking enabled. If you have responders that are actively collecting data in the field and do have their responder tracking turned on, you can always use the refresh responders button, and this will refresh the responder tracking list to have the most up-to-date data. So to finish off, I wanted to show a few sort of use cases and examples of the responder tracking feature and how beneficial it can be. So if, again, from the field coordinator or event manager perspective, if my responders are out in the field and maybe we don't have the best service and I can't keep in constant communication with them, I'm able to just pull up their responder tracking and latest location on the map, and I can see exactly where they are. If they're maybe heading into an area where it's close to the hot zone, you can alert them and let them know that they're getting close to that border. I can also see the data that they collected on the way. So if different areas have a higher reading, we may want to check that out more. Another example using some field teams, this was actually from the NREP conference that we had a few months ago. We did a drill where there were a number of teams, and if I was the field team coordinator for a specific one, and I only want to view my specific responders, what I can do is use that search bar, search for the field team, and then turn on just my field team's tracking paths. So I can see each user and where they were, the route they took, with the different time, the distance traveled, all of that I'm able to see as a field team coordinator.